today we're going to be discussing whether or not it is still worth pulling Kafka. And to beat that one guy who has so far commented on every single one of these videos, with this one's for you. Yes, if it wasn't apparent from the videos I've done so far, it is always still worth pulling any of these characters because this game hasn't even been out for a year, and they haven't been power creeped yet. This is kind of sort of more like a hypothetical question. I find the yes comments down below very funny, very funny. It's always yes. Until we have another electric Nihility character, it's not even worth considering because there's no one to compete with what Kafka actually does. And as much as people like going Jinglu or Dragon Dan have power creep the other DPS units. No, they haven't, because when an enemy has electric weakness and not imaginary or ice, an electric unit will always be better fighting them. It's such a... It's very, very silly. But let's talk about Kafka. I've answered the question before Mr. Commentator. Let's talk about Kafka. Why is it worth pulling Kafka at all? Let's talk about her base kit, shall we? So first up, Kafka is a Nihility character. Now, Nihility characters are debuffing characters, but there's a second type of Nihility character. It's actually the main type of Nihility character, and that is a character who applies dots, damage over time on enemies, and that is the type of character Kafka is. She is a dot-based character. Now, you might have heard people calling Kafka a future-proof character, which she is because of what she does. What does she do? Well, Kafka is a character that enables you to front load dot damage. Now, dot, if you didn't know, is the damage that is applied to an enemy when you break them, or characters like Luca or Sampo or Gwen here. The little damage ticks that are put onto the enemy, and on the enemy's turn, the damage tick triggers and the enemy takes damage. The dot damage is considered as backloaded damage because when you do the initial hit of damage from your character, they don't get the main portion of that damage until later. And on a game where it's very speed focused, your damage being triggered, like considering we build these characters to take 2 or 3 turns in a round, having your damage being triggered on the enemy's go, if the enemy only has 1 turn around, is bad. It means you're not getting as much damage as a unit who has front-loaded damage, like Argenti. Argenti has a lot of front-loaded damage. Genuine technically has backloaded damage because Lightning Lord is his damage, and it's determined on Lightning Lord's chain in the fighting. So dot damage is backloaded damage because it's reliant on the enemy's turn, and you don't make your enemy go faster, you make your characters go faster. So what Kafka does, the thing that makes Kafka future-proof is her skill triggers dots on enemies, and her ultimate triggers lightning dots on enemies. Now, her bonus ability here means that her ultimate also triggers other dots on enemies. So when you have your Kafka fully leveled, both her ultimate and her skill will trigger all the dots on enemies, turning dot damage from backloaded damage into front-loaded damage. That's what Kafka does, and that is why she is considered a future-proofed unit, because her core damage is reliant on the other dot damage users with her doing how much damage they're doing rather than her own damage, because these dots, the dots that she triggers, will do whatever damage the other units are putting on the enemy. So for Kafka to work incredibly well, you need to build up a team of dot units to do really strong dots, so when she triggers them with her ultimate or with her skill, it does a lot of damage. Kafka is incredibly powerful in simulated universe. like any of the modes when you run the Nihility path, because the Nihility path applies a lot of dots and keeps lots of dots on the enemy. So when Kafka uses her skill or uses her ultimate, it does a lot of damage. Like a lot of Kafka's really big numbers you'll see from her is when she's doing simulated universe and triggers the Nihility stuff. She can do incredible damage, but her ability to do incredible damage in MOC is limited to whether or not the supports you run with her also do really good damage. And at the moment, we only have 4-star Nihility units to run alongside her. So yeah, Kafka is considered future-proofed for that reason. She turns a typically backloaded damage gameplay into a front-loaded damage gameplay, and it's quite possible there will be units in the future that do similar stuff to Kafka, but Kafka's main strength is she can activate all dots on a unit, while I have a feeling like future dot-based units will probably only be able to trigger the elemental type, not so they don't power creep Kafka, and that's always good to have on the team. There are units that already trigger dots of their own type. Luca, for example, can trigger physical dots, and I believe, take this with a grain of salt because I don't use Sampo. I have Kafka and I don't use Sampo. I believe Sampo can also activate his dots. I think it's in his Eidolons. I'm not looking, so, check yourself. Uh, um, I think, yeah, Kafka's pretty much like future-proof for that reason. But even if we had a second unit that also activated all the dots, you would just play them together. Kafka's not going to get power crept for a very long time. She's pretty reliable. She only needs this light cone to be good night sleep well. That's the one you should have on her. I don't know if there's any other options. I think this is meant to be okay. Probably best run with a Rune May, let's be honest. Anything else is just okay, I think. I think whatever this one's called, Eyes of the Prey. I think Eyes of the Prey is meant to be quite good as well. You do not run before the tutorial mission start on her. Keep that on your Pella. This is not a Kafka-like cone at all. It's not good for her. But the Her to Store one's pretty good, and Sampo's one's pretty good. I guess for Mata, if you don't have anything else, it's pretty good. Lucas Light Cone is only really good for support unit. So if you're running like a more support focused Kafka, this is probably okay, but Kafka is really the main damage unit on your team. Now, how to build Kafka? Dot units aren't really built like conventional units because damage over time doesn't crit. It's okay not to focus on the crit stats. Now, I do have some crit stats on my Kafka, but at the end of the day, honest talk here, even though damage over time does not crit, and the main damage of these units come from the damage over time, the initial hit on the skill, on the ultimate, and on the talent, I'll get to her talent in a minute, all can crit. So while you don't have to build crit on Kafka, you can just throw any pieces on her. As long as it has attack percentage on it, it will be really good. You want really high attack because that's what the damage over time scales off of. It's fine. You do not have to stress about trying to make a good crit ratio on a dot character. But at the same time, if you have it, it's fine because the stuff like the normal attacks can still crit. And Crit Kafka is a thing. Let's explain Crit Kafka because loads of people were talking about this like a few months back. Crit Kafka is actually based off her talent, which is her follow-up attack. Kafka only has 2 ways to apply dots herself. Her skill doesn't actually apply any damage over time unless it breaks, where her talent, if another unit does a basic attack on an enemy, Kafka will do a follow-up attack to attack that enemy, and that will put a dot on it. It has like 100% chance to inflict shock on the enemy, and this talent up here gives it a big boost, so you don't have to build like res effect or something or whatever it's called on Kafka. She should have enough in her base kit to not really need it. And her ultimate applies shock dots, but her skill, the main thing you're using all the time, does not. So Kafka only has 2 ways to apply dots. This is why you build Kafka as fast as possible, because that, and her teammates as fast as possible, so that you have more chances to put dot effects on them with her follow-up attack. And the way crit Kafka works is you invest really heavily in her follow-up attack, you put all your traces in, you get your crit build, and because your team is really speedy, doing lots of like basic attacks, you're actually doing really, like, you're critting off your follow-up attack. And if you run her in conjunction with Topaz, it can be really strong. It can do a lot of damage. It's a really weird hybrid build, but again, you don't have to build your crit ratio in Kafka. It's like, it's okay to have, but you don't need to stress about it. How do you build Kafka? Well, let's just talk about it. I did mention it. You want attack percentage. You do want some effect hit rate. You especially want effect hit rate if you have her signature light cone, because there's an effect on her signature light cone, which I think is like 80% chance to apply dots, and for that reason, you want effect hit rate. But if you don't have a signature light cone, this is just nice to have for, I guess, enemies that have really high resistance. I personally would suggest in this current meta where people have discovered break effect works, which I find is really, really funny personally myself. Like, how have people been playing this game that they suddenly realize break effect's good? I would suggest you want to aim for attack percentage and break effect, a little bit of effect hit rate, and effect res, and you want as much speed as possible. Get as much speed stats on your Kafka as possible. You want her on attack percentage chest. That's one great big relief on your Kafka. You don't have to worry about getting a crit piece chest. And of course, speed boots. Yay, speed boots. As for as for sets, Prisoner in the Deep is really good if you're definitely running your Kafka with another dot unit. Please do not look at my team lineup. More dot units you have, the better this is. Otherwise, just just use the lightning set. Or if you are building crit Kafka, do like 2-piece, I don't know, lightning set and 2-piece follow up, I guess. Whatever. 2-piece set. The main thing is to aim for really high attack percentage stats. Because if you're not getting the full 4-piece effect, then that's what really matters, just as much attack percentage as physically possible. Next up, I think this set, the Space Stealing Station, is the general recommended set to get on Kafka. Just because it gives, like, maths, 24 attack percentage increase, and of course you want attack rope. Yay. You can also, if you really want to, but completely optional, run the set on her, but only if you've got the speed. Because like this is 135 speed to get the 12%, where Space Filling Station is only 120, which is way easier to achieve. I would say you could do this if you're running Kafka with Asta, which you quite often want to do. We'll get onto teams in a second. So you can reach the 160 speed, but like, I haven't leveled a single one of these sets because I don't think I have any units that will benefit from it, and I don't have a Sele, so... But this set is good. If you can reach the 160 speed, it's worthwhile. Otherwise, yeah, just Space Stealing Station, easy peasy. It's really easy to get, really easy to build. You should have loads, hopefully. Fingers crossed. As for traces, you just kind of want to level her ultimate and her skill, if you're and some into talent. You don't have to match this if you don't want to. Because unless you're building like crit Kafka, I don't think it does a large portion of her damage. And make sure to get the traces that matter. I don't think my Kafka build is amazing, personally. Not really. I have a lot of effect hit rate. I know she gets some in her traces, but I think I've almost got enough to trigger her signature light cone. Yay me. I should probably like try and get some like more break effect on her or something. I do think having break effect on her is really good because you don't have to invest in crit stats. You can invest in the stats that break the enemy quicker, and if you break the enemy quicker, then it means you do more damage in the long term. It just makes sense. Obviously you want effect hit rate. especially if you have a single light cone, and effect res is good. Anything else is, a bonus. And the good thing about dot characters, you can just like throw on your spare relics, and because they don't need like such high investment relics, they can just be good. You can just level the relic. And sometimes you end up with crazy pieces like this, where you're like, why? Why is this on the dot set? Because it is. Because it is. I think like 3,000 attacks pretty decent on a Kafka, honestly. Shall we talk about teams? So I have here one of my favorite teams to run Kafka with. I have a confession to make to you guys. I haven't really built any of Kafka's conventional supports like at all. I've had Kafka since she came out, and as you can see here, her three big supports, Gwen, Sampo, and Luca. I haven't been using them. Um, you could say I'm a bit more of a hyper Kafka build because like I play Kafka mostly in simulated universe. I don't really use her a lot in MOC. She's fine in MOC. It's because I haven't built her because I haven't built the other dot units. I don't tend to use her so much because you can only use hyper Kafka if you haven't built the other dot characters. But Kafka is actually very flexible. What teams you want to run. You don't have to run her with the big three, Luca, Gwen, and Sampo. You can run her with Topaz. One of my favourite units to run Kafka with is Asta. If you didn't know, Asta applies a dot when she does a basic attack. And if you're running like a skill point positive Asta, she's always doing basic attacks, and you want someone to be doing basic attacks because that way Kafka does her follow up and Asta provides speed, so Kafka goes more often, and Asta also does a gigantic attack bonus with her her skill, which is just all round good. All round good for your dot characters. Asta is just an amazing dot support. Just throw her in there. She'll do amazing. Your other big option is Serval, the other unit I tend to use Kafka with. I have Serval built because I gave her all my Jingyuin pieces that he wasn't using anymore. So my Serval's pretty good. Serval applies, I believe, 3 separate dots. One in her talent, no, one in her skill, one in her ultimate, and I think one in her basic attack. I think like one of her Eidolons makes give a dot or whatever. So Serval, even though she's an erudition character, applies a lot of dots, which Kafka can all trigger, and you get Serval for free. And so she's like pretty much a perfect unit to go with Kafka, especially if you're breaking lots of lightning weaknesses. The only downside to Serval is because she's not a Nihility character, she can't equip like the better Nihility light cones. But on it, she's fine. She's fine with Kafka. I run her with Kafka all the time. She's fine. Other options. She's fine to run Pella with her. It's fine to run most of the supports of her because most of the Harmony units buff attack. You can just like put them with Kafka. I still think like Asta's the best because Asta applies a dot herself. If you're running Hyper Kafka, you run her with Tingyun because Tingyun does a really big attack buff and makes you ultimate more often. The only thought I have on using Tingyun with Kafka, and one of the reasons I didn't really suggest Tingyun with Blade is Kafka's ult is very good, but it's better the more dots you have on units, and triggering your ultimate often, if you don't have enough dots ready, means you don't do as much damage. So having ultimate often is good, but I do feel like Tingle is probably really best if you have a super fast Kafka. If you have like Kafka's light cone, because it gives her lots of speed, I feel like Tingle is better. But if you don't have Kafka's light cone, I do think like Asta's better because you're when you, even though you're not getting your ultimate as much as when you have Tingyun, you're gonna have more dots. So when when you eventually get to Kafka's ultimate, you'll do more damage. And I guess it's the argument of whether or not like doing ults more often is more damage, or doing more powerful ults when you do them is better. I feel like as long as it clears content, it's both is correct. I always knew you can run Blade with her if you want, because Blade doesn't take many skill points. Unfortunately, her best sustain support is Hugh, and because she gives like attack percentage buffs on her ultimate. I don't have Hugh. I have Locha. It works fine. um, Otherwise, just give her whatever sustain you want. It doesn't really matter if you don't have Hugh. Pretty much, you want as much attack buffs as possible, and Hugh gives that. Any Harmony Sport that gives that. So, Asta, Tingyan, you can run Hanya if you want, but I feel like Hanya's actually really good if you build a lot, like with lots of break effect, and you can guarantee that break effect because break effect is like the strongest dot in the game. But if you can't guarantee Hanya breaking your enemies, just run Asta. Just run Asta. For that reason as well, you can run her with units like Xushang because she has lots of break effect and can break units really quick. Um, and then Kafka can trigger her big powerful physical dots. But really, you just run Luca and build him for break effect. I think Luca does really powerful break effects if you build him that way. I will one day build him that way. I just have lots of units to build. Now, one thing I notice lots of content creators do when they make these videos is they really upsell the characters to you, and it makes sense because Honkai Star Rail, what characters you get are very important. Uh, when you play Genshin, you talk about how you're a Alhaithime main, or a Nuvalet main, or a Kaching main. But in Honkai Star Rail, it's very difficult to be a main to anything when different units have different strengths and different content and different enemies, and you can't just run your favorite physical character when the enemy has like lightning fire wind weakness. You just can't. It's not very effective, and you have to like, unless you have Eidolons, it's not really very viable, especially in Memory of Chaos. It's really difficult when you're doing simulated universe, and it can like ruin your entire run. So what units you pull for is quite important, and so far there's only 2 lightning DPSs in the game, Kafka and Jingyun. I do think Kafka is better than Jingyun, just because well, we've all like complained about Lightning Lord now, but you really feel it. You really feel it sometimes. But to be fair, my Jingyun does do more damage than my Kafka in general content, like MOC, because I haven't built the units for Kafka. But getting to the point. Lots of CCs will try and sell you a unit. Today, even though I've been like promoting how cool Kafka is because she turns dot damage into front-loaded damage, at the same time, if you don't have Kafka on your account, you have absolutely no reason whatsoever to pull for future dot characters. Like, I don't look at leaks, so I'm not entirely sure, but there's a strong possibility that Black Swan is going to be a dot-based character, which means she probably will benefit greatly from Kafka. Um, and if you don't have Kafka, Black Swan probably won't feel as good to play. So if you don't have Kafka, you have absolutely no reason to wish for Black Swan, right? Honestly, wish for whoever you want. But I do feel like there's a lot of like bad vibes about when it comes to what units people have on your account, because it's a really strong feeling that you can't clear content without certain units. I imagine trying to do the new Pulp Fiction without Argenti probably feels really challenging. I have a few friends who have been struggling to complete it because they don't have him. And because of that, because they create units create content very well to fit the new units, if you don't get the units they have created the content for, that content can feel really difficult and really challenging. And so there's a lot of pressure to actually get as a big a variety as units as possible. So, and I've recently made a free-to-play account, so I can understand that when it comes to a choice of whether do you get Kafka and join that meta, that dot meta, so when there is content that is tailored for dot stuff, like the next Memory of Chaos should be dot focused because Kafka is on the banner, or the next Pulp Fiction is apparently going to have a dot focus. Do you get this unit so you can complete that content or not? It's tricky. It's tricky. I don't think you need Kafka. But she is, yes, a future-proof character. She is a big, strong lightning DPS who's a bit more reliable than Jingyun, especially if you don't have the units to make Jingyun really shine like Bronya and Fushan. But at the same time, if you don't have her, then you don't have a reason to get any of the other dot units. And you can just like go on with your life and save up for some other units. As long as you can clear those lightning weaknesses, it's all good, right? I feel like it's important to keep things in perspective. I'm not here to sell you characters. I feel like this game is very good at trying to sell you characters and tempt you to wish for them. And I feel like, especially lately, with their very clever way of like making this game challenging and to try and convince you to get new characters. I feel like we just need to remember that sometimes. You don't actually have to pull for everyone, and you could probably just use Serval, like you know, on everything, if you really want to. I've seen people do it. It's possible. But I still think my first advice from when I did my Silver Wolf video, where you generally do want one DPS of every single elemental type eventually. And if you're trying to decide between Kafka and Jingyuan, then I do think Kafka's the better pull, unless you have the things that make Jingyuan good. Because if you don't have the things that make Jingyuan good, he's not going to feel very good. I had Bronya since like the first week of this game, so Jingyuan has always felt really good to me because I've always been able to cleanse him, so my Lightning Lord is very rarely ever delayed. With Kafka, you don't have that problem. You don't have to worry about something else providing her damage. All you need to do, you don't even need to build her a dot team around her if you don't want to. You can just build Hyper Kafka and she'll still do damage as long as she's fast enough. Hyper Kafka only works if Kafka's really fast, and I feel like it only works best if you have her light cone. You could probably do it without her light cone, but I'm just going to be real with you, it probably won't feel as good without her light cone, because the reason it works so much is her light cone allows her to apply dots a lot, and gives her personally more dots to trigger. And if you don't have the lots of dots, then it's probably better to run a dot team for her personal damage. That said, in Simulated Universe, you only really need Kafka because the Nihility path is just that strong, and Kafka will do ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous damage on it. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Pretty simple. Kafka's like the good thing about the dot units is they're so easy to build and use. That said, I've not built, like I showed, not built really any of them. But that's because I prioritize building a DPS of each element and making sure the harmonies I have are all built and all the debuffers I have are all built. And dot characters are still damaging units, so I've just delayed building them. And we're gonna have Dr. Reishi out soon, so I'm gonna have to build him too. But yeah, I recommend Kafka. She's not a must pull. She isn't, but she is, I guess, technically more future-proof than other characters are. But I still don't think we have to worry about power creep, like true power creep, not the stupid Dan Hung ambient Dragon Dan is more powerful than all the other DPSs. He's not. He's not more powerful. It's the trade-off for the skill points. Like, if you build a good team, they should do an equal amount of damage as Dragon Dan does. That's how they balance the game. I know Jinglua is really, really powerful, but honestly, I don't have it. And yeah, the only reason like I feel like she's like I need her on my account right now is because they deliberately make Memory of Chaos like only ice weakness side. That's like the only reason like it tempts you to try and want her because they make a side that's just only strong to ice and you have no other options. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. If you have any questions about Kafka, do leave them below. I'm not a super big expert. I just want to lay down here on these things. I just play this game and I watch a lot of other content creators. If you want to learn other builds for Kafka or how he works for other teams and stuff, do make sure to go like watch other content creators. I really like Braxophone. I think his guides are really funny. I love them. Grobe is really good. I've been recently watching Gacha Smack and stuff. They all do really good videos. They definitely go into more depth about these units and how to use them better than I do. I just want to do these videos because I feel like the way I explain them is probably easier for people who don't want to get into the technical aspects of the game so much to understand. Because, like, I just about understand everything. And if I can explain them to you and you understand me, then I feel like we all understand the game better. And I will do my very best to answer things. And if I'm not sure about stuff, I do go and double check stuff. If I've got anything wrong, yeah, like just put it down below. I'll answer it. But yeah, I feel like for the most part, this is correct. But anyway, if you have any questions about Kafka or any comments or whatever, do comment down below or post your favorite Kafka team. My favorite Kafka team is, unsurprisingly, probably this one. I'll probably actually have Astra in the 4th slot rather than Luca. It depends if any physical break. I just really enjoy playing Kafka and Topaz together. Um, Kafka, even though I don't have her in super high speed, is pretty good and reliable at activating Topaz's activating Numby. So they just go really good together. I should try a crit Kafka build, see how well it works without her signature light cone. Post down below your favorite team or who you're gonna play her with. Have you built your dot characters? Are you better than me in that regard? I will build Sampo one day. One day we will build Sampo. But it's much more likely we're going to get Black Swan first. I'm not going to lose another 50-50, honest. Right, I'm going to end the video for real this time. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Goodbye.